Robert, I know this is going to sound very confusing, but the real estate market is actually hot.
That's confusing for sure. What are you talking about?
Well, it's hot in some places in Canada. And on this episode of Real Estate Chat with
Robert Eid.
and John Perez, we're going to look at reports that say that in some places in Canada, the real estate market outlook seems pretty nice. And in other places, tension is easing. And that's from a special housing report from the Royal Bank of Canada. And here it is. We're going to link this in the description. Make sure you click on the link and you click on the PDF report itself. Basically, it starts off by saying that Canada's housing markets, for the most part, are seeing more balanced conditions as the fall season is about to get underway. So basically, Bank of Canada's interest rate hikes this summer cooled what had been a surprisingly strong rally in the spring. And buyers and sellers, of course, being cautious, and they're calling it in trend with rebalancing or consistent with rebalancing trends. Now, the thing is, obviously, Canada is not all the same in terms of how the market is doing. And so they put in a neat little graph here where they're showing home resales versus new listings. And what's to note is that for example, Calgary and Edmonton, home resales have picked up, whereas new listings haven't picked up quite as much. And so you're having inventory challenges. Meanwhile, in Toronto, new listings have popped 16.2% upwards. Home resales have dipped 5.2% downwards. And so talking about all the various different things happening all across Canada here, Calgary, Canada's hottest market, still seeing very, very strong demand and very strong sales at that. Prices are continuing to rise as well. And here's a link to the entire report. Robert, based on this report, the real estate markets are all different in Canada. I guess not all doom and gloom.
Well, you got to remember that in Calgary, the average price is like 400,000. And when we're at $1 million and they're at 400,000, the monthly payment buyer thinks Calgary is great. And you can't get enough listings to satisfy the demand from first-time buyers at 400,000. But what does that matter in Leaside? What does that matter in good Mississauga, Mineola? It doesn't matter because it's a local market.
What benefit does it have to, how do you use something like this?
Well, you use something like this by looking at the major segments. What he says there is the Springs rally is running out of steam in Ontario, BC. Agreed. Local boards reported small declines, blah, blah, blah. Fraser Valley, Toronto, Calgary emanating, he's getting an overview, like this guy's sitting in one place and getting information sent to him. And then he's comparing it to what they sent last month and the month before and the month before and the month before. I don't like how much he relies on seasonally adjusted data, but he's got to do something. And so he's consistent in always using the same lousy information.
So it's just one brush painting a general picture.
Well, that's the headline. The headline is one brush, and we try and find a headline that will attract attention. So he did too.
So anybody who's watching this from, let's say, Toronto or let's say Vancouver, where prices are high, and certainly we've noticed a trend towards some living in the city moving to another city, which is Calgary or Edmonton, where prices are lower. Is that the main driving force, I guess, behind the market force? Because you said it best, somebody who's a monthly payment buyer or looking at the monthly budget and has a choice between 5,000-6,000 a month versus maybe 2,000 to 3,000 a month. Is that really what's happening here? Is there a move towards lower price real estate, or is there some secret happening in the province of Alberta that we don't know of that is pushing the demand for homes there so high that the listings can't keep up?
Well, Toronto, we're spoiled, and we think we're the center of the universe. So I can't really say about Calgary. We had an episode on Calgary a little while ago, and we had to look at this. It's much smaller. They're talking about percentage change, but much smaller numbers that are actually trading there. And again, we said much smaller prices. So they are not as much affected by high interest rates. Nobody likes to pay the high price when they know that somebody else didn't pay the high price, especially in the interest rate at the same time. So in Calgary, it's a boom. So it's a seller's market. So you do what the seller market. Toronto is not. Toronto is trying to find its feet. 905, the further you are away from the CN Tower, it's crumbling at the edges. Okay. All those specs that went out there to find cheap plot properties and put a basement apartment in and rent it out for a few years and then sell it at the big money. They're finding out that, oh, the tenants were a problem and the price isn't as high as it once was. And the reassurance that we had earlier in the year that it was going up is now gone, and everybody thinks it's going to fall apart. So maybe I better dump. And if he dumps, he just starts killing himself.
So, I mean, the key takeaway here for our real estate chat viewers is that, yes, a lot of these reports from, somebody sitting on their ivory tower looks at just strictly the numbers, but you've got to know your individual circumstances in your particular area. Thanks for watching this episode. Take care. See you next time.
See you next time.